this might be a little bit of a shorter class tonight. I'm a little under the weather. But
Oh,
let's sink into this moment and just let your eyes take in the entire room in front of you. You can even let them go just a little bit out of focus. And what you'll find is that that places the attention right up here at the third eye. And from there, we're just going to begin to breathe. Breathing in, you're aware that you're breathing in. You can feel your lungs expanding. Breathing out, you're aware that you're breathing out. You're riding that breath all the way down. And the idea is just to shift the attention to the breath for a while. If you have to, use concentration, which is a holding to the breath. But as soon as you're able, let that concentration shift into meditation, which is just a willingness to be with the breath, giving yourself to the breath, to anything outside of your personal story. When you give yourself to something outside of your personal story, it's amazing how its effect is always benign. Literally anything. The breath, a mantra, the steps you're taking as you're walking. Anything outside of this personal story of likes, dislikes, attitudes, and opinions has the same effect. You could meditate on the word pizza and it would create the same divine experience that you're used to receiving when you really give yourself to the teachings of this class. And isn't that interesting? What does that mean? That just about everything outside of your personal story is a road back to divinity. I want you to sit with that as you focus on the breath. Tension at the forehead and crown. Attend to the breath. And when the mind comes in to take you away, return to the breath. Return to the breath. Return to the breath. Be aware of the stillness that comes to your being when you focus on anything outside of your personal story. Here you are, focusing on the breath. And as you do so, that backdrop of stillness comes forward. That stillness that has been in the background becomes the foreground. We reach for so many somethings to experience power, but we only ever find it in the nothing. We only ever find it in the stillness. You let go of all your pushing and pulling. And then there it is. First, a clean calm that moves through the body. And then as the body starts to resonate with it, it becomes a contained power that continues to build. And as it builds, the consciousness expands. And the nothing remains nothing, and yet somehow becomes nuanced. A vast world of its own. Something that's always been there, just hidden behind the ephemeral something. Step into the simplicity of your breath and be aware of the vast stillness. As you find it, let it build. You have to kind of catch it. And gently let it have your attention. And then it starts to build. It's kind of like one of those stereographic images. You know, those ones that just look like a mess, but if you cross your eyes just right and relax, then an image comes forth from them. At first, you can lose it really quickly. But if you stay with it, it captures your attention, and then you can really explore it. Stillness is like that. You stumble upon it in relaxation whenever you take your attention off your personal story. That comfort as it's flashing. But you can center yourself within it. And then it becomes the foreground, the new normal, for however long you stay with it. foreground and background are just a matter of perspective. Why let a messed up, lost world determine what's the foreground and what's the background? Why not let peace determine the foreground? And let the rest rearrange around it. There it is. It's got some of you now. Just stay with it, gently, without force. And let it do what it does. Build and open. It evolves whatever it touches. if you just really let go? So that you don't have to hold yourself there, but can just be there comfortably. What if you just released into it? If you can make that the new ground, then you can expand from there. Now from that place, I want you to really listen. Listen with your ears and listen with your body. Many of you will hear a ringing sound. Or if you're not auditorially inclined, you might see a light. Or you might feel a vibration and a pressure on your skin. Those three experiences are the same. Whichever one you have, give your attention to it gently, without force. Listen, see, feel. Give it the space to open up. To show you its complexity, its nuanced nature, even if you don't understand it intellectually. Open yourself to interacting. what you're experiencing is the raw, unified intelligence of life. A force that's gone by many names. But let those go and just sit with it as it is. A vast, unified body of intelligence, consciousness. This is the force at the center of your consciousness. This is the force at the center of your dog's consciousness, of a snail's consciousness, of a plant's consciousness. Listen, feel, see. To listen, to feel, to see is the deepest form of prayer. This is the consciousness that split itself into the multifarious worlds. To experience every permutation of existence possible. You as a body and a personality are but one of those permutations. But your truest self is not separate from that in any way. There are permutations of that intelligence beyond this world as well. beings that have a hand in guiding humanity. Not because humanity is so special. There are beings that have a hand in guiding every blade of grass. Consciousness is just that all-encompassing. Intelligence. Presence. An organizing force that knows how to take a few cells and differentiate them into a liver and lungs and kidneys in a way where they work together to create an entire organism. We share this universe with each other, with the animal kingdom, and with kingdoms we can't see, at least not with our eyes. The beginning of this, before we started recording, one of you were asking about angels, saying that you were working with the seraphim and wondering what that was about. You know, angels are a name that man gave to a certain experience with other intelligences. That specific name, I believe it translates in Hebrew to the fiery ones. They're usually associated with a sphere of consciousness that restricts for the purpose of justice. It's those boundaries of life, those hard lines that we draw so that we can build what we need to build. But a group of people started to work with a similar energy, and so they named it according to what they thought its purpose was. And that student said that she gets tired from working with them. And that's a normal experience. You know, those are energies that, while they're meant to guide humanity, exist at a much higher vibration than humanity. They're meant to be several steps away. But that's how organized this life is. It all exists in the body of this great, vast intelligence that has split itself into a million different experiential units at all levels, from the most subtle to the most dense. You know, we've gone through and named them. We call some of them angels, we call some of them demons, some of them spirits. There's not a lot to that, really. Most of the things we name demon are just things that are not necessarily good for humanity. But are we the center? You know, a lot of those things that we named demons were killing us off because we were damaging the land, and their job was to protect the land. But for centuries, there have been groups that work with different aspects of different beings. They're all faces of God, just as you're a face of God. They're all playing a role, just as you're playing a role. What's nice about them is that they interact with the story realm. You know, by giving an energy a name, you give it a place within the story. The story which otherwise keeps you from reality. You know, we said at the beginning of this class how interesting it is that giving your attention to anything off the story takes you into divinity. And what does that mean? What it means is that the vast majority of everything that exists can take you into divinity. But this personal story stands in the way. But these paths that have taken different beings and given them names provide ways to populate the story with different entry points into divine experiences, or at least experiences that can elevate the story. You know, that's the role of any religion, to guide and regulate the story, to bring it into enough balance that you can let it all go and be with the pure intelligence and find that pure intelligence at the heart of everything you experience, including yourself. Some people's stories are so imbalanced, though, that they can't quite break free of them. And so having systems like religions that can help a person calm those down, simple teachings, do unto others as you would have done unto you, karmic teachings, eightfold paths, they give you a place to start. But when it all calms down, and that backdrop of intelligent, resonant silence comes forward, don't miss the silence for a named entity. You can explore those entities from the silence. But the vast everything is at your fingertips. And I know you've experienced it. Steep yourself in that. Play with any of the things you want to play with. But don't neglect to steep yourself in that. Understanding those entities helps you understand how life is constructed and helps you understand the dynamics of the story. Nothing wrong with that. But don't miss the forest for the trees. Your freedom will always come outside of the story. You can thread it through the story then. Your story is a system of yeses and nos. You can change that system to give you some of the freedom that you want, or to shackle yourself purposefully to anything. But the freedom will always come first from letting go of all of it. Just something to consider. Are there any questions about any of that? Not really a normal teaching for this class, but it's a very specific group that's here tonight, so I'm guessing there's something you needed to hear in that.
I feel like I've been thinking a lot, don't miss the forest for the trees. But I can't really hold on to what I'm supposed to learn about that. Can you explain that further, what you were meaning to teach?
Yeah. So, in the story of our lives, we get stuck. And we get stuck because everything in that story is designed to trap our attention. And you're in a body that is made to get stuck in the story. You have dopamine hits that keep you seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. And then even when we start to step into spirituality, there's a religious aspect that can come with that as well. And we've all been exposed to multiple religions at this point. And those religions brush up against the spiritual in a way that makes them attractive. And they usually have all sorts of different beings or practices or ideals that can trap our attention in ways that elevate our life a little bit. But at some point, you have to let go of all of that and just be with the peace that exists in the silence. Because, as I think you've probably seen by now, Sooks, if you sit with that long enough, it becomes very nuanced and it becomes a world of exploration in and of itself. But if instead you kind of take that step back and try and find it all within the story, you're going to get stuck on the details of the story. The story is like a veil that covers you from seeing the vast everything else. You know, we are ants on a rock as individuals. We are just a tiny bit of what is. And we let our story about that tiny bit keep us from everything. It keeps us from all of the peace and knowledge and power that is available to us. So not missing the forest for the trees is about not missing the vast everything, just so that we can play with a spiritual story, you know. And that's not to put down a spiritual story. I am somebody that has studied many different religions. I have worked with many different beings in many different religions. I continue to do that. Why? Because it's interesting to me. Because most religions have set up their contacts in a way that are very descriptive of the mechanics of life and the mechanics of the story. But I don't find my end goal there. My end goal comes when I then stop playing with my tools and take a step back and just open up in the way that I have you guys do in this class. Doesn't mean you can't have any of those things. Have whatever you want. Just don't mistake it for the one big thing, for the forest. A few chats have gone through. Let me just make sure I've got it all. So, great. Okay. Any other questions about that? I think this week, why don't you guys spend some time finding the line between those two things? You know, take moments in your life where you just let go of what you're focusing on and open up to everything all at once. And then shift back. And then open up. One of the things I used to do in some of my early classes was I would have people read some engaging piece of literature and get lost in it. And then I would have them stop and pull back and let go of all of it and open up. And then they would go back in and feel that process of getting lost in it again, you know, lost amongst the trees. And then pull right out of it and open back up. Seeing the difference between those two things and maintaining an awareness of that, because it's elusive, right? Nothing in life asks this of you, is a powerful kind of tool to carry with you. It gives you some power over the story, the ability to sit down and let go. You know, I have a story too. Every Thursday night, though, I come exhausted from my story and I sit down and I let go of all of it in an instant. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Sometimes I'll ask students for different things if they have things they want to talk about, but as far as how that's going to work into anything, I never have any idea. I just let go of the story completely and I open up to the big, intelligent, resonant silence that is always here. And it can work with the stories. You know, I'd like you guys to have more and more of those experiences of just stepping out of that. You know, when you're working at your desk or wherever you work, spend time in it and then spend time just open in the big, vast everything, but still going through the motions of life. See what happens when that is putting your work together for you. It's a different experience. You'll find if you're really doing it, time moves very differently as well. You can actually get more done. So why don't you guys play with that this week? And I'm going to get going. Actually, I'm just not feeling very well tonight, but I will see you all next week. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you. Get well.
Thank you, Hope you feel better. Much love to you all.
Good night.
Bye, guys.